Welcome to the Female Angle. I'm Youza and this is Eman. Eman.
Youza.
How are you doing, Eman?
I'm good. I'm great. You tell. How are you?
I am very happy to see you. I actually wanted someone a lot similar to the personality vibes that I'm getting off from you. So, like, I'm very happy.
Good. Yeah.
So,
Glad to be here for the first ever podcast.
So, Eman, I'll just get started. So, I wanted to ask you, भाई boxing का क्या शौक हुआ था तुम्हें पाकिस्तान में?
I mean, have you been here in Pakistan? Literally, I think it's super necessary for everyone to learn a form of martial art, not just a sport. Like, everyone plays soccer, everyone, like, has some sort of athletic thing or interest at least. But I feel like martial arts, it instills so much discipline in us that we don't even realize until we do it.
Yeah.
I think it's super necessary for everyone to do it. For me, personally, I'm a very violent human being. It was
like sports itself is considered a stereotype here because we live in a very we live in a conservative society. Not everyone does, but let's talk about stereotypes, right? But boxing, it's just like the first thing when you think about boxing, it's just like, okay, a male sport. A male's like it's more violent. And you just said, okay, you are a very I don't think you are. I think violence can also be addressed in a more violence can be good sometimes. What's your take on that?
So, okay, let me rephrase. Maybe I'm not violent per se. I have an aggressive personality type.
Aggressive personality type.
Meaning I'm kind of extroverted. I'm a bit introverted and extroverted, but more on the extroverted kind of in your face type. And yeah, I think that basically has given me a bit of success in the sport because I know there's a way for me to kind of unleash, quote unquote, unleash in training. But what it actually taught me was more self-control than unleashing. Like you said, when you say violence, you kind of associate that with the male stereotype. Like males are mostly big and strong and have big muscles and are violent, and so therefore they would be good at boxing. And that's again something I'm trying to break because I'm like, I've been told that you hit really hard for a girl, and I'm like, good. Feel the pain.
Feel the pain, exactly. Like when you're navigating through this field, do you feel like you need to be more assertive being a female or more violent? Do you feel like people need to be that way to survive?
100%, man. I feel like women, we've taken the back seat for far too long now.
Yeah, man.
I mean, I don't have to tell you or anyone else here that the second we try and stand up for ourselves or try and speak up, we're called heat, mupat, we don't know our place, all of that. And I've heard half of these things in my life also, and I'm like, okay, come stand in front of me and say that to my face.
Exactly.
I have the skills to prove it. I have the skills to literally, physically destroy you. I think just learning the skill of kind of beating the shit out of someone in a controlled environment has given me so much more confidence, and it's great. I can walk around being like, okay, say it to my face.
Is it do you feel more confident, for example, martial arts, MMA, when you're walking down the street, I want to ask you this question. Have you ever experienced assault, and have you ever kicked someone's ass? Because a lot of the times people say, okay, if someone's harassing you, you just need to pick up MMA and you just pick up martial arts and that's going to stop it. But I think what people miss out on is you could be Bruce Lee's granddaughter, but if 5 people are going to come pick you up in a van, you can there's only so much you can do.
So the reason I initially didn't start with kickboxing or MMA or anything. I started off with Krav Maga, which if you don't know or the listeners don't know, it's an Israeli martial art that has been kind of molded to self-defense, essentially. And I started because I was assaulted and I felt really unsafe. So I was like, okay, I want to learn how to defend myself. And I was in the UK, so I was like, I want to walk down the street and not kind of get scared or, feel unsafe. So I started it, and the first like month or so, I started walking around with my chest puffed out, and I was like, yeah, someone like, you know, come in front of me.
Yeah.
I'll take
Aake dekho.
Aake dekho. And then after that, I experienced another like a thing of assault, and I was like, okay, I guess it didn't work. Like, you know, you have so many cases of professional mixed martial artists or gymnastic athletes that we also know who have been assaulted, who have been sexually harassed, and these are trained professionals who have experienced hardcore training their entire lives, who have been in this situation before, you know. So there is no one who is safe. Even if you're the most trained athlete in the world, you can be susceptible to it. However, I know that martial arts has given me more confidence. Definitely. And via the experiences that I've had, good and bad, it's a learning curve.
And you know, people are constantly learning. I think learning never stops. But that's very interesting what you said, that athletes are also harassed, because I had this friend who was a male, and he was actually in a swimming team in a very prestigious school here, which I would rather not name, but he was harassed. No, but like even he faced some sort of harassment, and it was just like, you know, like it was sad, because it's a very renowned school, and, you know, it happens everywhere. So let's talk about your story, though. I want to know how you became what you are right now, like
murder
what
machine,
the unleasher.
Okay, so I mean, I already mentioned like part of it, that I kind of got into Krav Maga and self-defense, and I wanted to, you know, make myself better and make myself not scared anymore. Like that's what was going through my head.
Was this accepted in your family when you initially told them, okay, I want to do this?
So I was in the UK, I was studying at that point, and I was like, you know, my family actually doesn't really know about the like extent of harassment and stuff.
Okay.
So it was just like something that I wanted to learn, you know, and they were okay with it, you know. And then I moved back from the UK, like post studying and stuff, and I was like, I want something to do. I want to like apply myself in some athletic, you know, field. And I started like Muay Thai, and I really enjoyed it. Initially, when I told my parents that I want to fight, I want to do that, you know, it was about a year or so into training. They were not like fully accepting of it. They liked the idea of me doing it as kind of a hobby and for fitness, but they didn't like the idea of me fighting.
Professionally.
And I had to, professionally or amateur, like, you know, just getting into the ring in an officiated match and doing that. And I had to argue a lot back and forth and be like, this is what I want to do. Like, I want to go to Thailand, and I want to train also. And a lot of my ideas were shot down. But I was like pretty dejected for a bit, because I'm like, okay, my own family doesn't want me to do something I'm so passionate about. But then I kept training. I kept like, I just kept my head down. I was like, let's just work hard. Let's just be better. And I knew that I was going to fight. Like, no matter what they said, it was something that I wanted to do, and I made my mind up about that. So I was like, screw it, I'll find a way.
But like, you mentioned something about self-control, right? And I feel like you're someone who has a lot of self-control, and there are different...
I try.
Well, it works. But there's different types of motivation, right? There's extrinsic motivation motivated by external factors, and then there's intrinsic. And, you know, like, sometimes people just like, you know what you want, and you put your head in the game, right? That's intrinsic, right? And I know it's not a perfect path. You get course. Like, I know everyone's human, but you know how people are like, when you're young, you're like, okay, I want to be I want to be a violinist, and then you pursue that. So where do you? I guess my question is, where does that motivation come from? Like, you know, where does that drive come from for you?
So, I mean, not everyone is motivated 24/7.
Exactly.
Not everyone wakes up in the morning and is like, yeah, I'm going to give 100% today, and actually goes and does it, you know, including myself. Like, you know, it's not every day that I wake up and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to like kick the crap out of some pads today and beat the shit out of a person today and have fun doing it. Like, there are times where like I'm on my period and I'm like, I don't want to do this. Like, why do I want to get out of bed? Like, why did I start doing mixed martial arts?
Yeah. No, yeah, I feel like people view motivation in a very linear timeline. Okay, if someone's motivated, they're gonna wake up motivated every day. Whereas behavior is humans are much more complex. Your behaviors can sometimes not even justify the reasonings. Like if I want to lose weight, I would not eat the cheeseburger, but I still want to lose weight, but I would eat it. My behavior won't justify what I want to do.
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying. Behaviors are and motivations are complex.
Yeah, and behaviors are learned. Like, not everyone wakes up or can wake up at 8 a.m. in the morning and be like,
exactly.
yeah, I'm ready to start the day. But if you wake up at 8 a.m.
I wish.
Don't we all? But if you wake up at like 8 a.m. or make an effort to sleep earlier, and yes, you'll be tired when like the first week that you wake up at 8 a.m. and then the next week will be slightly easier, and then the week after that it'll feel almost natural.
Yeah.
We're very complex creatures, yes, but also we like patterns. We like behavioral patterns especially. So we can kind of train our own minds we can trick our own minds into what I'm trying to get at. So when motivation fails, then, dedication kind of has to come in a little bit.
Yeah.
So there have been times where I've been on my period and I'm like, I don't want to train, but I will still kind of train because I'm like, even if I give like 5% of my 100%, it's still something that I'm doing. I'm not going to sit in bed and then wish that I worked out.
These are changes, right? And people often think changes need to come in a big, drastic way. Yeah. But there are little, wrinkles that happen in our daily lives that we don't notice.
Yeah.
So I want to talk to you about changes as a subject. And how there was this interesting study that was published about how human beings, if you ask them, how much do you think you would change in 10 years? Most of the response rate was like, no, not much. Like, I think I would still be the same person. But if you ask them, how much do you think you've changed or recently, they'd be like, oh, so much, man. Like I've changed like so much. And I've changed my personality. And we kind of downplay our changes because our mind, psychologically, it's very prone to fit to changes. So what's your take on that, like personally and professionally?
Man, I'm not the same person I was 1 year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago. I'm like a completely different human. Exactly. But like our mind doesn't like to process changes until we kind of see it in retrospect and we see it big picture. Then we're like, yeah, I did change.
Those are transformative changes.
Yeah. But again, we're changing every single day, like you have mentioned, and we only see it when we see the big picture. And in our brains, I think we're kind of averse to change. I think people have told us, oh, you're amazing, never change, or don't change the way you are. Like, keep smiling, keep being happy and bubbly. Like, I'm not going to be happy and bubbly 24/7. Yeah. We all go through experiences, and it molds us and forms us and shapes us.
No, man, I think that is 100% true because we are a living, breathing organism. Everything is changing all around us. Like you go to uni, you change. You get married, you change. You have children, you change in very drastic manners. And this is just a macroscopic lens that I'm talking about. So humans are constantly evolving. And I wanted to also discuss one other thing with you about hedonism and self-control. Like, while I think self-control is amazing, how we just spoke about how it's not in a linear time frame? Like, there was this study done by the University of Zurich about how people who practice hedonism or, pleasure-seeking activities have the same amount of happiness as people who do self-control. Because sometimes, it's good to let go.
Of course.
Of
course. There are very few people who will sit down and say, yeah, I was really happy not eating that cheeseburger for 5 months, I like to practice this with my clients also, especially those who want to lose weight, who want to develop a healthy lifestyle. The concept of cheat days, of how you want to refrain from eating a certain type of food or foods. And then you have one day in the week where you can just end up binge eating and stuff. I think it kind of harms you psychologically and also physically.
Yeah.
Because say I don't want to eat that chocolate, or sorry, I want to eat that chocolate and I can't eat it for 6 days. On that 7th day, all hell will unleash itself when I eat 5 chocolate bars.
You binge eat on.
You binge
yeah.
eat. So I like to tell my clients, like, have a piece of chocolate, instead
Yeah.
of an entire bar of
Sometimes
chocolate.
give it in,
Of course. Like, it applies across life. Like, if you enjoy doing something truly and, it's not harming the others around you, of course, then indulge, Life
Yeah.
is, yes, about self-control and refrain. Like, if you have to refrain from some things, if everyone gave in to their cardinal pleasures, then I think
it
the world
has
would
to
be a
do
little
with
chaotic.
it goes back to Freud and his theory about like how like Freud went to the extreme though, but like how he spoke about how you shouldn't let the ego, which is the pleasure seeking part, take over, and like the brain works in a manner where we work on restrictions. So, and some people I've noticed like self-control, like they enjoyed it. Self-control, I think there's a negative connotation. Like I feel like pleasure and self-control are interchangeable. Like how people, like I've
That's
met
interesting. How?
Yeah.
How so? How do you think that?
Because I feel like I've met people who, while practicing self-control, they take pleasure in drinking their green smoothie or eating their salads. They're like, yeah, I'm gonna have a salad today. I'm gonna work out, and I've met people like that. And how people have set these goals and they're excited about achieving them.
Yeah, I mean, that's good. Like, if you have something to, work towards and move towards, it's a goal in your head. It's something for you to achieve. And we get that little hit of dopamine when we do actually achieve it. So I get that. I understand how, maybe they don't, like, practicing self-control basically leads them to a better goal for themselves. You know? I get the same when I'm, like, training or doing, like, sparring, which is like practice fighting essentially. We are taught not to use 100% of our power because you don't want to hurt your training partner, right? You don't want to injure anyone or least of all yourself. So, I mean, we practice control in our punches, kicks, all of that stuff. And it's great. Like, even though you want to kind of go 100% or your instinct tells you to do that. And I've seen that in so many men here. Most of the men that I've sparred with, when they get punched by a girl,
oh my god,
it's like this little thing, this switch flips in their brain, and they're like, okay, now come here, and I will beat the shit out of you, or I will just go 100%.
Speaking about this, have you ever felt like the other person or your male counterpart in specific is going easy on you just because you're a girl, or does that not happen?
It depends on the person. I know, like, friends of mine who are actually in my, like, training space, my training group essentially, and he does say, yeah, I do, go a little light on you, and I'm like, why? I'm like, nobody asked you to, like, but again, like, it's all in the spirit of training and of learning. You don't want to beat up the other person, and even if you do, it's control, it's self-control. You want to learn from the other person, you want to experiment. There are so many other things to look at that power and letting loose and going 100% kind of should take a back seat, and they do. Whether you consciously think about it or not, it just ends up happening.
Okay.
And that's what's so beautiful about martial arts, because or at least I hope that the people who learn it would want to experiment, would want to test out new styles or just learn new things, that they forget about that aggression and the letting loose for
kind of works as therapy for a lot of people too.
100%, 100%, yeah.
No, that's beautiful because I think my favorite martial artist, Bruce Lee, was also a philosopher, and he applied a lot of these therapeutic techniques to when he was like, when he was training. So I think I understand a bit of what you mean. But like I wanna also talk about the mindset that you get into when you're getting into a ring. Like what happens in that little brain? Like,
oh my god, stress.
Is there some sort of speech that you give yourself, like you can do it, or like some sort of thing that gets you ready and up for the fight?
So I've spoken about this before also. My normally fighters go through a training camp for a month or 2 months before their fight, where they look at their diet, they look at their training, and it's a tough time for a fighter because it's a lot of self-control. Like, in the diet aspect, in the training aspect, you really, really, I guess you let loose also. Like, my physical training was so tough, and at the same time I have to control my diet because I have to meet a certain weight criteria.
Oh, yeah.
There were points in at least in this last fight, also in this training camp, where I was like in tears. I had nosebleeds. I had like minor injuries also. Like my fingers were kind of like sprained.
Damn, man.
I tweaked my knee, my back, like everything.
Whoa, man, you're hardcore. Impressed already.
It's the life of a fighter. But I had the people around me in my training camp, my training partners who, would push me.
So there were people who helped you, like,
of course.
navigate.
We're social creatures.
We are social creatures.
We need people.
Yeah.
As much as we want to say, and trust me, I've been that person who's like, I'm a lone wolf. I don't need anybody, and it eventually harms you. Like, we need people around us to kind of support us and help us in our journey.
Yeah.
So if you're alone, find somebody, find a friend.
No, I think it's pretty healthy if you have people to talk to, and communication is key, honestly.
Of course. There were points where I was literally crying, and my coach and my training partner would be like, tell us the problem, like, don't hold back, like,
That is so sweet.
no private thoughts, essentially, So whatever issues it was, whether it was like training related or non-training related, just kind of let it out into the open. But like, this whole experience of training camp kind of molded my mindset a little bit, because my training partners would just say, you are the best, like, keep training, like, keep going on.
I feel like that's very important, like self-love, in order to like, there was this comedian, I watched a lot of stand-up comedy, so there was this comedian who spoke about how if you don't love yourself 100% and someone else just loves you 20%, you will accept that.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't, because if you are not at a mindset where you even accept the value that you bring yourself, that you bring to the world, then even in your relationships, you're gonna get really bad relationships because they're gonna give you value that you don't deserve. So
you're gonna feel validated
I
with
think
that
it's
20%
exactly.
when you should be getting 100%.
100% or more, probably. Like, why not? So
I see so many people fall to this, the exact same thing that you've said, because they don't know their self-worth.
They don't. And I think self-love should be practiced much more. Like,
it should be started from school. Like, we're not taught self-love in school.
Yeah.
We're taught geography, history, Islamiyat.
Indoctrination. Yes, no.
Yes, no. But
Stand up.
We're not taught to do taxes. We're not taught to love ourselves. Like,
being financially literate. I think those are such important topics, or like, say, first aid. I think that's...
Exactly. Yeah. But no, we have to get all A stars so that the school's reputation is saved.
Yeah, and it's just only how well you do in a test, not how well you navigate life.
How well you do ratta to be able to copy-paste in the exam.
I think that needs to change. Will bring change.
100%. The schooling system hasn't changed for the last century.
Because it's based on the factory model, right?
Yeah.
So,
It's really sad. It's sad to think about, but I'm also glad I'm not in school anymore.
Coming to a conclusion, I just wanted to wrap this up and ask you, what does the female angle, per se, the female angle, mean to you?
Yeah, the female angle.
Like, do you think it's important?
Man, of course. Like, I think when it comes to media, when it comes to women in sports, when it comes to women in professional environments, in their own respective fields, we haven't been heard for so long. And even if we're like heard, we're not really listened to.
We're given a second opinions most of the time.
It's like a second-rate...
because we're considered secondary citizens, right? So our opinion isn't that.
Essentially, yeah. So I want to, hopefully, like with MMA at least, bring women to the forefront. I want to, it's not just going to be me. It's not just my effort. I'm not going to go out in the ring and kind of end sexism forever. It probably won't even happen in our lifetimes, but all we can do is kind of try and take those steps, teach the men around us that, hey, maybe you let us speak. Maybe you don't interrupt us when we're talking.
Yeah.
You know, and it starts with the people in our immediate vicinity, you know. It's not like you should go, I don't recommend going on to men, like random men on the street and just think, hey, stop staring at me. Although I have techniques for that too. If anyone wants to know, if a man stares at you on the street, do not break eye contact. Keep staring at him. If he still does not break eye contact, lift your phone and try and take a video. Most often than not, he will definitely look. Really? There's a little sidebar.
My technique is pulling out my double chin. I'm like, let me show them what they're missing.
I'm going to try that next time. That sounds really effective.
It is.
But all of this kind of points to the fact that you shouldn't back down as a woman, you know? Like, I've been that person who's kind of stared down with a man and he doesn't look away, and I'm like, oh shit, I should not look at him
What
anymore.
a gutsy ass.
I'm like, the audacity, and I still looked away. But again, these are habits that, you know, we are trying to unlearn and learn and trying to make ourselves more confident. But it's not just going to take the women. I don't want to sit here and be like, yeah, women should learn self-defense or they have to learn a martial art, because it shouldn't have to be that way. It shouldn't have to be that women need to be strong and women need to have the defense. And, you know, we're always talked about passively, like a woman was assaulted or a woman was this, like, point out to the man.
Harasser, point out to make him the main subject.
Exactly.
Like, not the,
name him, shame him, put his face all over social media and make sure that he will never do something like that again, you know.
Yeah.
We need to shift the responsibility on the men a little bit because, hey, man, you kind of made this problem. I think it's time for you to solve it. You know, why is it up to us women to solve a problem that they created?
And I'm so glad you said that, because that is exactly how it should be. People it's not on, the onus isn't on us to learn self-defense, to just keep them from staring at us. Like, you know, like, do better. Like, you know.
Exactly. Like, you're the big, strong men who rule the society. Do better.
I love your male impression and big strong man.
I mean, honestly, I'm sick of it. You
Yeah,
know?
man.
And
Every
I think
woman
most of
is.
us are.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's time to let our frustrations out. It's time to not be quiet about it and go back to the kitchen, quote unquote. Go back to the kitchen, take out a knife and throw it at the patriarchy.
And on that note, I think we will end our podcast. And it was so wonderful having you here. I'm so happy you came.
Yeah.
And I think we spoke about some really solid points.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I enjoyed.